Just over a year ago, the state legislature passed a law directing our agency to study the current programs that we have in place for regulating solid waste and to make recommendations on potential improvements. Rather than take this task on alone, ADEM decided to seek a partner who would bring an independent perspective to this process. After receiving a number of proposals from state universities, we chose Auburn to assist us in this project. As you've already heard tonight, the main purpose of this meeting is to gather input on the current state of solid waste management in our state and those improvements. As we go through the meeting, I'd like you to keep two things in mind. First, how can we improve solid waste management through increased recycling and beneficial use of materials? Secondly, what improvements can we make to the permitting of solid waste landfills in our state?
What are some of the challenges with the current processes for solid waste management in Alabama?
The major challenge we have with the current process is the roles are clearly defined under state law. What ADEM's authority is, what the local government's authority, even what the Regional Planning Commission's authority is. Unfortunately, as we go through the review process, sometimes those roles are confused or muddled. For instance, ADEM just conducts a technical review of the application. We make sure that the proposed landfill design, construction, and operation will meet the state and federal regulations. It's the local government who has to look at need, property values, other quality of life issues. Under state law, those factors don't enter into ADEM's decision making. The Regional Planning Commission, on the other hand, just conducts a review for the regional needs. They don't have clear veto authority under the law. Perfect example is need. We're always getting comments on, we don't need this landfill. Well, currently in our state, we do have sufficient capacity when you look at the state as a whole. But certain areas with the state, there are low areas of landfill capacity. So new landfills may be needed in certain areas. The key issue, though, is how should that new capacity, those new landfills, what's the process for siting them, for permitting them? What are the roles of each of these agencies? State, local, regional, how do they fit into that process? Those are the primary challenges, is understanding those different roles of the different parties.
What are we hoping will come from this study?
Currently, within the country, there are a number of different ways to manage and dispose of solid waste. Here in Alabama, though, we're still primarily a disposal state. And by that I mean the vast majority of the waste that we generate goes into our landfills, where it's buried and stays for perpetuity. However, there are means of managing the material differently through recycling, through the beneficial use, to get away from a waste-driven process to more a materials management process. Things such as waste-to-energy products, where solid waste is burned, or the off-gases from solid waste are burned and used as fuel in manufacturing processes. We have some of those currently in the state, but certainly growth in that area could increase. Same with recycling. We have a number of communities that do a great job of recycling, but they're isolated. It's not widespread as you may see in other states. Certainly, how to grow that, what incentives or what programs can be put in place to increase the amount of recycling, how to get industrial generators to use more beneficial use, to use recycled materials in their manufacturing processes. Those are all things that we can do here in Alabama to help change from landfill-driven to more a materials management so that we can fully use the solid waste that we generate and not see it as a waste, but see it more as a commodity or as a resource.
What is the public's role in this research process?
We envision that a set of recommendations will come, and there are three different types of changes that could come from those recommendations. First, there are programmatic changes that ADEM can make in how we implement the regulations and the requirements as they exist. Secondly would be regulatory changes, where our regulations would require to go through a process to be changed formally. Finally, and probably most prevalent in this, would be regulatory or statutory changes that would be made by the state legislature. Those would be changes in the law that would define better the roles of the department and others.
What are some other options for the processing of solid waste?
What we're looking for of this process from the public is their input, their suggestions, their ideas on how these issues should be addressed. So the public, we think, plays a vital role because we're all generators of solid waste. We all foot the bill for its management in the state. And so ultimately, we all have to have a say in how this process should be done and ultimately how it should be regulated. Whether you believe the current state of solid waste management in the state is broken or not, you should have a say in this process. If you do feel that it's broken, how should it be corrected? If you think it's fine, that needs to be heard too. Then ultimately the department will take those recommendations, those potential improvements, and we'll make our recommendations to the legislature for further action.